Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalamu sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Tariq Khalid. I like to enter our program here at Sharjah Media Corporation. Doing good, and we hope by Allah's mercy and grace that all our viewers are doing those things which Allah is pleased with for the sake of our own salvation and for the sake of our families, our communities, our nations, and for humanity in general. I want to read one verse from Surah number 39, verses number 17 and 18, actually two verses. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So announce the good news to my slaves, those who listen to the word, meaning the good advice, which is La ilaha illallah. There's no right of worship but Allah. And follow the best thereof, meaning to follow, to understand, and repent to him and avoid taghut, what is worshiping others than the one and only Allah. So Allah is calling us to worship him only, and this is called the good word, La ilaha illallah. There's no God worthy of worship but Allah. There's none worthy of worship. There's actually no God but Allah. People call things gods or whatever they may, man-made things or whatever it might be, or things which Allah has made God. There's no God but Allah. Only Allah stands alone and has no associates and no partners. To get that reality and accept it for many people in the world is difficult because of the belief systems that they have been taught and that they're presently practicing. But ultimately, this is the path for true success. And this is the good word. This is the good news for those who wish to understand, for those who wish to see, for those who want the truth, for those who want the ultimate return to be to Allah in a good state. And we need to think about this. What is our present state and where are we going? The people who talk about time management, they say, how are you managing your time for the next 50 years, for example? Have you organized your time? Where do you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years, 20? And continuing like this, where do you see yourself in this world? And what will be your level of consciousness at that time? What is it that you perceive? And part of this is having the correct ideology. Somebody says, well, my ideology is my own choice, isn't it? And you have your choice, I have mine. And that, of course, goes without saying. But at the same time, we're calling the people to this ideology, if you want to call it that. The belief in the one and only God for the sake of our own salvation, for the sake of salvation for all of humanity. If we look around us today, there are many signs which people are calling natural catastrophes. It gives us an opportunity to be aware and conscious of the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and how powerless we are. That's one. Number two, it should wake us up to the fact that we are truly powerless when it comes down to the decree of Allah. So at the same time, Allah gives us choices. And let's just take something in consideration. If we look at the so-called natural catastrophes that are happening, and they're going to continue to happen, and they're going to increase in frequency, and they're going to increase in their dimension. And why? People say, how can you say that, brother? I said, why? Because the Prophet ﷺ, he told us about this. He told us that in the last days that these things would happen. And one of the things which he mentioned that earthquakes, for example, would increase in multitude or magnitude and frequency. What we're seeing today is just the tip of the iceberg. And what will be the recourse for the people? We have no protection. We have no physical protection. You can move, you can have an airplane, you can move to another place, as an example, and then that place will be struck. You can be in your airplane and be struck by lightning or a storm, or so many things can happen. As an example, no one escapes death. Allah says in the Quran, more or less, every soul shall have a taste of death. How we die is prescribed by Allah. But we do have a choice. And this is the good thing. We do have a choice of how we die. Where, when, we don't. How we die, in a sense, what I mean is that we have a choice of being a believer or a disbeliever. That's the choice that we have. How, when, where, no. But the condition of our faith, we have a choice. And we should work on that choice now. As we see, people say, for example, wars are horrible, which they are. Tsunamis, earthquakes, tornadoes, all of these things which destroy or mass destroyers. And they ask the question, well, there are so many innocent people, men, women, and children, elderly, who die in these kind of catastrophes. It's not fair. Well, let's look at it from a different perspective. If we look at the perspective that everyone has to die, the person who dies with true faith will get paradise. It doesn't matter when he dies, where he dies, or how he dies. But he has true faith that he's going to get paradise. A child, an elderly person, a child, he is dying. People say before his time. No, it was his time. Allah has taken him away before he can commit the sins, before he becomes responsible. An elderly person who's sickly, his sickness, if he's a believer, his sickness becomes a means of forgiveness for his sins. The longer that he has been sick and he's been patient in obeying the commandments of Allah, this has been a means of forgiveness for his sins. So when Allah takes his life, this has become a mercy for him. Hopefully that all his sins have been forgiven, as an example. And this catastrophe which we're seeing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has actually given him bliss, something different than what we understand. So there is another aspect of it. If we're talking about wars, the warmongers, the problem is with them. Yes, the persons who perpetuate war, who enjoy killing, who are benefiting and thriving off of war, who are bloodsuckers, these people, what will be their condition when they come before Allah? This is what we need to understand. No one will escape. They will have to answer and account for every aspect of whatever it is that they initiated, the smallest thing in relationship to harm to Allah's creation. Imagine. This becomes astronomical. And that person who in this world may have been enjoying the profits from the war, he will have no recognition of what happened in this world. The world would have been an awful place for him. And now he will have to account. In the grave, he will begin to account. The day of judgment, he will have to account for all of this. Cain, for example, let's look at this. Cain killed Abel. Look at this. Cain killed Abel, the sons of the prophet Noah. So Cain now, on the day of judgment, will have to account for all the murder that has taken place. Imagine how much murder has taken place since the people, of descendants of Noah, and until the last day. Imagine. This is unimaginable. We can't calculate it. So similarly, the people who are promoting evil, they will have to account. They will not escape. So don't worry. They will not escape. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't address it to the best of our capability wherever it is that we live in the world. We should, to that which we are capable of doing. But at the same time, what we are capable of doing is being believers. We are capable of doing that. And this becomes our salvation. Think about it. Because many people say, oh, I'm in a terrible situation. I hear people say all the time, I'm in a job right now, and my boss, he's horrible. And he knows that I'm in a very difficult state of affairs. I need finances. I can't do without a job. And right now, jobs are hard to find. So he exploits me. He abuses me. Endure. Be patient. Pray to Allah. Obey Allah. Ask Allah for ease. Ask Allah for patience and perseverance. The family, as an example, of Amr bin Yasir, who was companion of the Prophet ﷺ, his father Yasir, his mother Sumayya, were people who lived in Mecca and they had no tribal support. So they were abused. When they accepted Islam, they were abused. And Sumayya Anha was the first woman to die as a martyr in Islam. Not only a woman, she was the first martyr in Islam. A woman, yes. She was speared simply because she believed in Allah only. And her husband and her son were beaten, and eventually her husband died and succumbed to injuries, that what? Come from the hands of the people who were idol worshippers because they would not denounce Islam. And her son Yasir later on became a martyr fighting for the standard of Islam. So we see that there are people during the time of the Prophet ﷺ who endured great hardship and difficulty simply because they wanted to be Muslim, simply because they wanted to pray and worship Allah only. They came from a society that was idolatrous, and they didn't want to do this. The people wanted to force them to believe in this system. So today, most places in the world, people are not being forced. There are still some places where the idolaters are holding fast and imposing their will on people. But generally speaking, this is not the case. And a person can also accept Islam quietly, silently, not let anyone know that I am a Muslim. And we have to worry about this. We have to worry about our condition after death. Today, this media, this particular medium that is being used, has brainwashed us into thinking that everything is about this world, that you have to make all your efforts in this world. If you're a person that doesn't have the means of this world, that you're an ignorant person, that your life is decadent, that you deserve to be oppressed, to be abused, to be used, that you are there to be used by others. And there are many people who are arrogant and impose this, and their mentality is of that. Well, you know, some people are just there for our service. They're our footstools. They have been created for this purpose. We're doing them a favor by giving them a few dirhams, a few dollars, as an example. So if you find yourself in this state of affairs, turn to Allah. Listen to the good word. Implement that in your life. Believe in eternal salvation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will grant you peace in this environment. Yes, because He can. What appears outwardly is one thing, and what Allah does internally can be something totally different. The proof of this matter, there's many, but one, the people use the Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. His people were idol worshippers. His father was the person who made the idols. When they found out that he had destroyed one of the idols, they took him and catapulted him into a huge fire. And Allah commanded the fire to be cool. And Ibrahim, the Prophet of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Allah commanded the fire to be cooled and to inside the fire for 40 days and 40 nights. Allah made it like a garden of paradise for the Prophet Ibrahim. People can say, okay, well, he's the special prophet of Allah. And this is true. Bilal ibn Rabah, who was a companion of the Prophet ﷺ, who was the first one to call the adhan, the call to prayer. They used to beat him in the street. A crowd of men used to beat him until they got tired. They used to take him and drag him in the street. They used to take him and put a stone on his chest and sit out in the sun. Sit him out in the sun. Years later, the companions, they asked him, how did you endure this? He said, it was this, at this time was the time that I experienced the sweetness of faith. What does it mean? It means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the intestinal fortitude to survive and to endure. And that Allah gave him something above and beyond this physical existence. Now there are people who says, well, I just believe what I can see, hear, taste, feel, smell, as an example, or touch. But there is another level which only Allah can accommodate, which is above and beyond this physical level. And Allah granted him that because of his sacrifice. So what we're saying is that true faith is what we're pursuing. And the person who is pursuing true faith, that Allah can and will elevate him above and beyond the things of this world, this physical existence. And this, particularly for the people who are enduring grave and hardship and difficulty. And even today, if you ask people who we see in the media, who are enduring extreme harsh conditions, but they are people of faith, when you will talk to them, they will tell you that Allah gave me the ability to survive this. Allah gave me something to benefit me so that I can endure what I'm facing. So we're saying to everyone out there, turn to Allah so that you can endure whatever challenges that you are facing in this world and stay focused on the hereafter. My name is Tariq Khalid. I'd like to thank you for joining us here at Sharjah Media Corporation on Doing Good, and we hope and we pray that Allah grants all of you this guidance to the truth. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.